When people use the verb I deserve it, immediately we think inside of us almost like, oh yes, because this person worked hard, or because this person made effort. But what I'm trying to say with this, that why nobody deserves what they have, is because I feel like this verb is inadequate. It's insufficient to account for the complexity of what it means to have certain talents or success or have certain fortune in your life. I think that we need to come up with a word that includes other variables than just pure effort. Nobody is to blame for being born with the wrong passport or a language that hasn't had global significance. I feel like when seeing other people now, I could see that where they are at in life is a combination of luck or bad luck, talent or lack of talent, and also effort or lack of effort. And so it's all of that, it's not just one thing. Welcome everybody to the Philosophy in Real Life podcast, where we strive to live in the most truthful way possible while unmasking wrong interpretations of the world. I am your host, Carlos Santos Aguirre, a philosophy PhD candidate from Spain. And today I have my best friend joining me in this podcast series on meritocracy, Tristen Sleeper. Please, Tristen, introduce yourself for people who might not have heard the previous episode, and tell us what you're doing here.
Again, my name is Tristen, and I'm an American from Boston, Massachusetts. Moved out to Italy a few years ago, and I am here just representing the average Joe here in Carlos Philosophize. So that's what I'm here for.
Wait, you said that you have an anthropology degree, right?
I do have another. All right, yeah, I do have a degree in anthropology,
Yes.
but I don't like to talk about it too much. So, I'll say it just for a little bit of credit, but
Yes,
I don't feel like an anthropologist. I feel more like a guy that works at a software startup. I've sold out.
Yeah. Well, Tristen is what I call the. Well, I do believe that everybody's a philosopher, but I would say that Tristen is closer to being a good philosopher. He's a clandestine philosopher, or clandestine. How do you say that? Non-official philosopher. Even I am kind of the academic, so to speak, philosopher. But again, people, some philosophers that we read about, they never went to university, so do not just believe the value of a person's thinking based on just their credentials, even though they might prove or they might show something about them.
I keep crossing the ground. That's kind of how I see myself, right? It's like as you're philosophizing up in the air, I try to bring you back to earth.
Yes, we need to put our feet on the ground. Okay, well, today we'll continue our lineup of episodes. This is episode number 2, and we're going to explore this idea of why nobody deserves what they have. And I just want to also remind you that this episode that we're recording and the ideas, I have also written a blog post about it that you can find in the show notes. Same thing with the previous episode. In case you just want to read it because you prefer to read apart from listening, that might be an extra. Yes, in the previous episode, we spoke about why a society based on merit cannot solve inequality. And I mentioned an idea which I would like to make the main focus of today's episode. While it is true that not everybody makes the same effort, it is also true that not everybody has the same starting point. Many people have initiated the race of life with clear disadvantages, right? And I'm drawing inspiration and also quoting some ideas or some parts of this book, The Tyranny of Merit by Michael J. Sandel. And Sandel mentions 2 main areas where these disadvantages can take place, right? And he mentions talent and then fortune or luck, basically. And I would say that the analysis of these 2 things will help us see how the concept of merit or deserving is inadequate when making claims about what people deserve. And this is the thing, Tristen, because now everybody was like, "Oh, okay, what do you mean? I don't deserve what I work hard for?" But when I say deserve, I'm trying to use that term very carefully, right? Because I think that we need to come up, we need to invent or create a different word that recognizes more things than just effort. And I feel like when people use the verb "I deserve it," immediately we think inside of us almost like, oh yes, because this person worked hard, or because this person made effort. But what I'm trying to say with this, that why nobody deserves what they have, is because I feel like this verb is inadequate. It's insufficient to account for the complexity of what it means to have certain talents or success, or have certain fortune in your life, or having money, or having assets and things like that. I think that we need to come up with a word that includes other variables, other things than just pure effort. That's what I'm trying to say with that. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. I mean, I get it. It's funny. I think about, right? Because if you think, I was talking about this with my wife actually, I think yesterday, and it was stemming from a conversation we had a while back about nepo babies. There's like this whole like nepo baby thing going on nowadays, where if there are some listening to this podcast that don't know what a nepo baby is, right? It's children of famous, usually artists and movie stars or singers or something like that have the privilege of also being a singer or an actor, or getting access to these to these with even though only because their parents were Hollywood royalty or whatever you want to call it. And it's a complicated situation, right? Because for me, I'm kind of against the hate for nepo babies personally. Like, I'm just sort of like what are you gonna do? That's kind of where I'm at. Is like they use their relationships to get ahead, and wouldn't anybody do that? And if they have the skill to back it up, then fantastic. Now, if they don't have the skill, that's a different thing. But like, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And everybody, right, to a degree, is going to have an advantage over something, than something else, right? Like, I am not a very good singer. I wish I could sing, but I just was not born with that talent. But but there are other people that are amazing singers, and they have the ability to be something that I'll never be, even if I wanted to. So it's an interesting thing. I agree that it would be nice to have a word that was able to account for both you having the skill to accomplish whatever it is that you want, but like that also adds in the idea that it wasn't only skill, or wasn't only the skills that you acquired, but you were predisposed to a degree.
Yeah, no, I think I think I was thinking when you were mentioning that, I was thinking of Will Smith children.
Yeah,
because I know that many
Jaden.
of them are actors. Yeah, exactly. Or they are singers, or they have had different opportunities. And I think that that's a clear example that not everybody has the same starting point. Obviously, Will Smith children had a clear advantage over so many people who don't have that type of parent, right? But at the same time, that doesn't necessarily make them successful, right? So they have good, so to speak, the good conditions to succeed, or easier conditions to succeed, but that doesn't necessarily give them immediate success. Because I mean, honestly, if their children weren't good at what they do, at what they wouldn't be recognized. It is true that, I mean, the son, right? What's the name of Will Smith's son?
Jaden.
Jaden. Okay, if Jaden is a legitimate good actor, otherwise people wouldn't watch his movies, regardless of the fact that he is the son of Will Smith. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't think that. I think that privilege alone cannot give you success, and effort alone cannot give you success. That's why I was saying that we need to come up with a word that recognizes this fortune and talent that you were born with, and that you did nothing to earn, but at the same time also the fact that you also put in hours to practice, to memorize the script, to practice, to go to this stage, to act, to make many sacrifices so that you could be a good actor. And I think that is the tension we need to live with, right? Like, how we need to be able to recognize the things or our clear advantages that we have, and also make us start from a different point in this in life. But at the same time, we still have to put in the effort, and we cannot just also so to speak, not recognize the efforts that people put in. You know what I mean? I remember I was talking to a wealthy child, and well, now she's 20-ish year old, and she was saying, like, like wealthy people also have mental illness, and we also feel depressed. And I think that she was making the point, right, that she's still a human regardless of how much privilege she had. Yeah. And I think that fair enough, man. I think that at times people take it to an extreme, right? Like, and I think there was a psychological study that I heard somewhere that your psyche normalize, because your psyche is seeking homeostasis, right? Stability, not peaks all the time. So it needs to function. Mm-hmm. And to function, it almost has to normalize or prioritize certain aspects and then make it super stable, right? Mm-hmm. And so there was a study that I heard about on a podcast. I don't know if it was Andrew Huberman mentioning that or Ali Abdal that quoted. Anyways, it doesn't really matter. The point is that when you live in a new way of reality, in a new level of economic success, your psyche normalizes that as the baseline, and so what seemed to you the most insane house, when you start living there, you still appreciate it, don't get me wrong. Obviously you appreciate a beautiful house over a non-beautiful house, but in the end, this huge dopamine rush and excitement and euphoria and the initial fervor of a person obtaining something, it just fades away. And and I think that then you are left with yourself. The reason why we went on this tangent is to basically defend the idea that we shouldn't dehumanize people who have a better advantage over other people. You know what I mean? Because even those people who had a better starting point in life, like Will Smith child, this actor, Jaden, like Jaden will normalize his surrounding and still feel depressed and still feel sad and still feel all of this, Okay, so going back to the topic, we were saying that Michael Sandel pointed out two, so to speak, two main areas. This idea of people not having the same starting point, he was referring specifically to the nature of talents and the unpredictability of fortune or luck, basically. Okay, so let's talk about the first one, the arbitrary nature of talents. So for those, now football has become more popular, so I'm going to use a football example. So Messi, let's talk about Messi. I like more Cristiano Ronaldo, so let's talk about Cristiano Ronaldo. Even my wife can't stand him. But anyways, I like how too much of a person is Cristiano Ronaldo when playing. So Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, Cristiano Ronaldo obviously was born with exceptional genetics, right? That obviously are shown or translate into his immense capacity to play fast, to shoot the ball, to be one of the best football players of all time, right? Now, granted, Cristiano Ronaldo makes a lot of effort. Actually, on the news here in Spain, Cristiano Ronaldo was famous for eating too clean, so to speak. And so none of his teammates wanted to go to his house because they want him to drink beer and have more steak or more fatty steaks. And Cristiano Ronaldo is like, no, broccoli, and lean beef, all of that, super perfect, right? Because he trains many hours a day, so his effort is almost unparalleled. It's almost out of proportion compared to the regular athlete, even. Even within the world of football, Cristiano Ronaldo is out there in the quantity of effort that he puts in to be better, right? And I think that but I would say, and this is part of the claim of Michael Sandel in the book Tyranny of Merit. If Cristiano Ronaldo didn't have this physique, this potential to play that well, it didn't matter how much effort he put in, that he wouldn't be that good. Does that make sense? In an alternative universe where he didn't possess this exceptional physical constitution, now the question is, would he have reached the same success, even with the same level of dedication? If I even dedicated in the same hours of training and the exact same routine as Cristiano Ronaldo, I don't think I will be the best player of the world. Does that make sense? Right. My brother Gabo would definitely say no. You know what I mean?
Not with your skinny legs. No. No, I'm
No,
just kidding.
For the audience, Gabo is my brother, my older brother, and he's so honest that one day I was looking at myself in the mirror, and I said, "These are the ruins of Rome." That's what I said. You know, I need to reconstruct Rome. Talking about my body, you know, to train harder, to start training more consistently. And Gabo said, "No, no, no, excuse me, please." He said, "Please, no, no. These are ruins, but these are not the ruins of Rome. These might be the ruins of Peru, of somewhere else, but not Rome.
Not Machu Picchu though.
Yeah,
Some
yeah,
other.
exactly. But some ordinary building. The ruins.
Exactly.
So anyway, so he definitely would have told me, no, you wouldn't be successful even with the same amount of dedication. Even with the example of Ronaldo, if he didn't have the genetic lottery, like, he wouldn't have had the success he had, regardless of how much effort he put in. That's what I'm trying to say with this. And same thing could be said about intellect or any capability where we have not done anything to inherit, right? Now, again, it is true that this potential, or whatever potential you have, can be developed through ruthless hours of training and practice, but the arbitrary nature of talents still remains. You know that you haven't done anything to have the talent or the intellect that you have in terms of potential, right? But again, you could work hard to then use those talents to succeed in whatever domain you are trying to succeed. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's
But
I mean, right, imagine like Shaq, right? Like I think about like Shaquille O'Neal, right? Like no matter how much, like I'll never be Shaq, right? Like
exactly,
it's just never gonna happen. I'll never be Mike Tyson.
exactly.
I'll never be these.
Oh, Mike, I don't Mike, bro.
Yeah,
It's legit.
you know.
I love
Yeah,
Mike,
like you'll never be those people, you know, or you know Einstein or whatever. You know, these people like there are certain people that like no matter how you are predisposed, you have an advantage, whether it be a strength advantage, a height advantage, a weight advantage. It could be where you grew up, right? Like I think about, you know, just the idea, like how your aggressiveness, right, could really just be from where you grew up. You grew up in an environment in which you had to fight from like a little, you know, as a little kid, right? And so the way you see the world, the way you interact with the world, the way you even like what you notice. Everything is just completely different based upon where you grew up and what you were born with. But then you have to obviously be able to cultivate that in a way. So there's going to be a mix. There's going to be some sort of mix of the effort that you put in.
So Michael J. Sandel in his book also speaks about the unpredictability of fortune or luck. And this is slightly different from talent. Because it has to do more with the environment, with the timing, with the historical context in which you are born into, so to speak. Okay, so for example, is Michael J. Sandel mentions in his book that LeBron James is fortunate to live in a society that loves basketball and is willing to pay to watch him play. However, if he had been born in Renaissance Florence, he might not have enjoyed the same success unless he has also the mysterious talent to be a great fresco painter. But as far as I know, I don't think that LeBron James is a fresco painter. And so what I'm trying to say with this, and just I'm subscribing to Michael Sandel's idea, is that asserting or affirming or stating that LeBron James deserves, with that verb, deserves his current position, overlooks the fact that he didn't have any control over his genetic potential in the case of talents that we spoke about before, and nor the society he was born into, where his particular talent is highly valued. So in this case, the fact that LeBron James was born now and not in Renaissance Florence years ago, hundreds of years ago, with that example, with that reality, we see the unpredictability of fortune or luck. That's why I have a problem if we were to say Cristiano Ronaldo or LeBron James deserves what they have. We need another word. I don't know what word. I need to cue a new term or something, something weird, okay? because it's not just effort. It was the genetic potential, the arbitrary nature of talents. He was born with this physical constitution, and lastly, also the unpredictability of fortune or luck. He was lucky or fortunate to be born in a society that actually has value his skills and is willing to pay money for that. Does that make sense? No. And these two things, the luck that he had to be born in this society and his physical capacity, he didn't do anything to earn that. Does that make sense?
No, it's true. It's I think about this even in my own experience living here in Italy. So a lot of people, I've lived in Italy for almost 3 years now, and my Italian is pretty good. Like I would say I speak fluently. I mean, I make mistakes and things like that, but I mean, I can go to the bank, I can get a house in Italian, I can have long conversations with people about a whole range of topics in Italian. And so when I speak Italian, then I tell people that, I've only lived here for, a little under 3 years. They're like, wow, like, you speak amazing Italian. That's so, it's incredible, right? And I can get a little bit embarrassed because the thing is I had an advantage. And my advantage was, prior to speaking Italian, I spoke Spanish. And I was able to basically convert my Spanish into Italian. And now my Spanish is terrible, and I wish I could do this podcast in Spanish, but it's not what it's a shame. It's a very big shame. But whereas I was able to have full-on conversations in Spanish, at one time in my life, that helped me learn Italian very quickly. But to be honest, what it can do though is I can now judge people who have been here for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years that don't speak Italian. And then I wonder, is it fair for me to judge a person whose Italian isn't good, even though they've been here for the same time as me or longer, when I had the advantage that person didn't, which was growing up in a Spanish-speaking household. The Spanish accent is more similar to the Italian accent. So my ability to have my Italian, I don't have an Italian accent, but it also doesn't sound American either, right? I don't, io parlo Italiano. I don't speak like that, So there's advantages, and so it's I walk around with this. There's a mix of like shame and pride that I have of like, yeah, I do speak Italian, but I've also had the advantage over other people as well, and I don't know how to always deal with that. And I, whenever people say that, are impressed, I'm almost like, maybe you shouldn't be that impressed with me because I had the advantage.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm trying to say is like, how do we still recognize, so to speak, the greatness of the outcome of somebody, right? Or a skill or an ability that a person exhibits, and at the same time, how can we appreciate that and at the same time like not overlook other variables that play into that, right? Because I think that depending on the conception that you have about deserving something, that will change your attitude in how you relate to others. Because if you think that it's just purely a thing about effort, then you will think that if somebody is not that good at Italian or has an accent, then it's because they are not working hard enough, and so that might make you look down on people. But if you take into account that there are other variables apart from effort, that also will help you have, so to speak, more humility when listening to other people speaking broken Italian, right?
Exactly.
But recognizing that should not eliminate us appreciating when somebody has excellent diction when speaking a language.
Right. Exactly. I guess maybe I shouldn't feel. I shouldn't feel shame.
You shouldn't minimize. Exactly.
I should have. But I should be able to have. Look, I have to appreciate the fact that I had an advantage, and I shouldn't look down on people.
Exactly.
That it's harder for them because of their circumstances. I have to recognize the advantages that I had, and because it helps me move in the world in a better way, and it helps me have compassion in a way that maybe I didn't if I didn't take the time to recognize my own advantages.
Right, exactly. And so we shouldn't devalue what most humanity appreciates as something excellent, just because you had the advantage over so many people, right? When we see in the Olympics, when we see a gymnast like doing crazy things and we're like, wow, insane, just because they had the genetic lottery to develop those muscles or those fast fibers or whatever, like that doesn't negate the fact that what he just did was amazing and worth applauding. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
And so I think that is attention. How do we still recognize that it's not purely effort, but at the same time, how not to devalue the characteristic or the thing that this privileged person is exhibiting or showing us. Does that make sense? That's why, I mean, I still want beautiful people in billboards, because that beauty is still something important that we all value. And this idea that beauty is completely subjective, no, sorry, that's another podcast series. But I do not agree with that. Anyways, I don't have an opinion. I have a theory. I have contrasted. I have done research and things like that. But
you have a theory on beauty.
Yes,
that's another podcast,
and we're gonna title Philosophy of Beauty, and we're gonna see to what extent is subjective. But even the term subjective is problematic. Anyway, I'm not gonna get into that. All right. So now the question is then, how can we have a better perspective on our achievements, right? So if our achievement or success or the outcome of our effort, not only effort but partly our effort, is, economic success, fame, recognition, status, how can we have a better perspective on our achievement if we are criticizing this term deserving? How can we speak about these things, about what we accomplish in our lives, in a better way? Now, perhaps, and this is my proposal, so to speak, okay? Perhaps the best way to talk about our achievements or what we have in our lives is through the concept of gift or blessing. This is the thing, gift or blessing. So by being aware that there are many variables beyond our effort that are outside of our control, we can see that what we have is the result partially of our hard work, but not only a result of it. Does that make sense? So this allows us to adopt an attitude of solidarity towards the otherness or towards others, right? So because we stop viewing things one-dimensionally, right? Where merit or effort is the only thing that we consider. And so, because, for example, I mean, we can give more examples than the ones we just mentioned, but the person we are judging as lazy or whatever or stupid, that person might have a chronic chemical imbalance due to generational trauma in their family, or this same person may not have been in the right place or the right time, as we were speaking before in the case of sports. And so and everybody, please, this is important, nobody is to blame for being born with the wrong passport or a language that hasn't had global significance, And so I think that we need to view our accomplishments with more humility and gratitude, since there is a great deal we have been gifted without us having anything to do with that. And so I think that instead of talking about deserving something only, we should include in the equation, no, yes, I deserve it, but I'm also very blessed to have these conditions, to have this opportunity. And so it's almost, because to some degree, if we eliminate effort from the equation, then you rob individuals from the capacity of self-recognition. It's like, I did this, And so I think that it's good to still appreciate that you did that, that you through effort did that. But I think that it robs you, like if it eliminates gratitude if you only think that it was the result of your effort. So I think that keeping this tension of both things help you to feel dignified through your work, that you created something great through your effort, through your time invested in that, but at the same time it helps you appreciate that, and yet this was a blessing, an opportunity. I think it changes the way you act out, and it changes the way you feel towards others. So let me elaborate on the first one now. So because I was given, because of the fact that my mother sacrificed coming to Spain and leaving us behind so that we can have a better future in a country that has less crime and more opportunities for education and all of that, because of her effort, and her effort is a privilege to me. See the connection, right? Her effort,
Mm-hmm.
her sacrifice is now a source of privilege for me.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks to that, by seeing that I am privileged, or I have an advantage over so many people who are behind, who their starting point is worse than mine. Because of that, I want to honor the sacrifice of my mother by working hard, by doing excellent work. Does that make sense? And so, in my opinion, it doesn't decrease. A lot of people think that if you say that effort is not important, they will not do anything. No, I do believe that because I was blessed and given, because of the sacrifices of people, are now for me a source of privilege. Because of that, I want to honor that by working hard and not take that for granted. And also, it helps me in viewing others. And this is the second thing I wanted to say: how believing profoundly this idea changes the way you feel reality in others. And I feel like when seeing other people now, I could see that where they are at in life is a combination of lack or bad luck, talents or lack of talents, and also effort or lack of effort, right? And so it's all of that. It's not just one thing. And I feel like when people just criticize people who are privileged, oh, white privilege, rich privilege, beautiful privilege, whatever privilege yes, that is true. There is something like that, right? Now, I do believe that those privileges that are maintained based through injustices need to be eradicated, right? And so I think that if a person is successful and their success is predicated on enslaving others or not treating fairly their fellow human beings, that privilege should not exist. But it will be hard to make the claim, or to actually prove that claim, that all successful people are there because they have committed injustices. Well, I guess it depends what you define success and all of that. That's a tricky conversation, right? But I think that there is a better way forward when you feel yourself like a empowered individual capable of exercising effort to make things happen and move things forward, and at the same time a person with a lot of privilege and blessings in your life, and you need to honor the people who gave you those privileges by doing excellent work and working towards the common good.
Wow. That's I think it's very powerful, and I think it's something that we as a society really need to. I don't think gosh, I have a hard time saying Western society. I can say more about America, having grown up there. But I think that this idea of honoring those that came before you is, I don't know, it's not there really. It's not really there. And I feel very privileged to live here. Actually, well, mostly my wife. So my wife, she's Filipino. And that culture is a very, I think they call them honor shame cultures. Is that what it's called? Is it called? Yeah. Is it honor shame? Is that right?
Yeah.
Whereas you take, Western culture, and I can say America, where it's a lot more individualistic. And I don't know what the name is of the opposite of that, but you may know better than I do. So, but what I think about is there's definitely negative attributes to that, right? Like, again, honor shame cultures can create a lot of shame, for
right.
people, and it can really cause people to struggle. And I've experienced that in a lot of the friends that I have that have grown up in those cultures. At the same time, there's a real emphasis on honor, on honoring those that came before you. Or there's a real, I don't know, there's a real push and a real idea that's like, like my parents did so much for me. Like, it is my duty to give back and to serve them and to love them and to really and to live to a degree in such a way that honors their legacy. And I think in America we reject that idea, in many ways. We reject older people in many ways. We reject pretty much most of the things that they did, and it frustrates me a lot, because I'm like, you know what? Like, I think that we should live in a world in which we honor those of the past, where they made mistakes, just like you've made mistakes, just like we all make mistakes. One of these days, there's going to be a generation below us that's going to look at the things that we did and completely not understand why we did what we did or whatever. And I think that we have to have, again, we have to live in a world in which we have a lot more humility in general, because we don't, there's a lot that we don't understand. And I think that humility is going to bring us to honor those that have come before us, to consider what we have to be a blessing, to be a gift, that, you know, the work that my mother and my father, you know, put in the sacrifices that they made, they created a lot of what I am, and they make me think the way that I am. They make me believe the things that I believe. And for me to reject that is unfair. And maybe I'm saying this because I had the privilege of growing up in a family that loved me very well, and so that's obviously another variable that we'd have to take into account. But living in a world in which we see the things that we have as blessings, and the things that other people have as blessings, along with a certain level of effort, I think that does create a society that is much more honestly cooperative. You know, we were talking about that before. It does create a more cooperative society, and it reduces resentment and increases cooperation, and hopefully creates a society that is a blessing to live in.
Exactly. And so judging the past from the present can be tricky. Now, that doesn't mean that there hasn't been moral progress. I think that there has been moral progress. But we need to be very careful. You know, I love what G.K. Chesterton, an English writer, used to say, that the tradition, or what we have inherited, right, as the traditional norms and things, the tradition was the democracy of the dead. And it's very and it's fair enough, meaning like back then that was what people seemed to be okay with, or what was the status quo, right?
Wow.
And so now we think that, now this is the new agreements, the new that what we are building now will be that tradition that we will that others in the future will inherit, and we will be judged severely by those two. So let us be careful how we judge the past and the other people. Now, anyways, I think it's always attention. But anyways, so everybody, to next episode, we are going to continue with our podcast series on meritocracy. And next episode, we're going to speak about why it is a terrible idea to let the market dictate or decide what is valuable. And so we're going to be speaking about market value and how we interpret the worth of human beings through the monetary lenses. That will be our next episode. And follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I'm in all those platforms. And also, if you are listening to this, just know that there is a video version of the podcast where you will get to see our beautiful faces, maybe not on billboards, but for sure on YouTube. And so you get to see us react and just talk, and so it just hits differently. And again, if you found value in this episode, please leave a review, a comment. Everything helps, to be honest, especially starting out. And yeah, that's everything on our end. Everybody, have a great weekend. Adios.
Adios. Thank you.